Welcome to the Fight Lawyer Podcast, where we discuss combat sports and the law. Our guest today is boxing and MMA trainer, Jason Parillo. Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to do this.
Hey, not a problem, man. How's it going?
It's going all right. So let's begin at the beginning. When did you first get into combat sports, and what drove you to boxing?
Yeah, I guess I got into martial arts, a Polynesian martial art called Lua Lima back when I was 10 years old. I guess 10, 11, 12. Got into boxing a little bit after that. Then went into. I've been messing around with all this fun stuff, other than rolling around the ground, wrestling, all that stuff for the last. Since I can remember, I guess. I've always been involved. I got involved in. I started doing boxing as my main passion and love when I was probably about 16, and had an amateur career as a boxer and then a professional career. And fortunately, I detached my retina in my left eye. I didn't get it fixed, and I was up in the air on coming back after the. I still got nerve damage in my left eye, so I got double vision in my left eye still today. So. That made me, I guess I could have came back and risked losing that eye if I really wanted to at the end of the day, but I ended up getting nerve damage in my left arm not too far after that. So I got half of a left hand and half of a left eye. So that put me into full-time coaching.
Understood. So you worked your way through the ranks. Did you ever think about going to the Olympics, Golden Gloves? Was any of that ever on the horizon?
Oh, 100%. I fought a couple national or regional tournaments. I fought a couple national champions when I was in the amateurs, but I never. At first I think that was kind of the idea. We're thinking maybe gun for all these tournaments and shoot for the Olympics. My coach, Jesse Reed, Hall of Fame coach, was he's strictly professional boxing coach. He's coached a lot of amateurs. Don't get me wrong, but my style really didn't fit the amateurs, I guess, as much as well. I know I lost a few fights back in the amateur because I was more about setting up the knockout than the point system and peppering the whole time. But, you think about all that stuff as you're back when you're young and you're doing it and trying to figure it out.
And when did you take your shot at pro boxing? Was it a natural kind of progression, or did you anticipate making boxing your career for years to come?
Yeah, no, I was all in. Once I started getting going and fighting, I was all in. That was going to be what I do, and that was going to be my career. And I had sponsors back in the day when I turned pro, so it allowed me to, boxing doesn't pay shit in the beginning of your career. You're paying, you're basically paying to fight at the end of the day, really. But I had a lot of people around me that supported me and believed that I could do something with the sport. But again, it fell short, and fortunately, during the process of me fighting and competing back in the day, I also I helped open up a gym called LA Boxing many years ago, and they ended up franchising a bunch of LA Boxing. The UFC ended up buying the UFC gyms ended up buying them out. But so with my coach. I worked with a lot of his athletes as well. A couple of his fighters, I would mitt-man them and work the corner with Jesse as well. That helps subsidize my income a little bit as well. So I've always known this is going to be I know the fight game is going to be my life since I can remember.
Why do you think the American amateur program has been diminished to some degree, some would say, over the past several years and maybe even decades?
Well, guys want to make money, the Olympics is, guys probably, I haven't followed that much, that amateur boxing, as a late, I barely follow the professional boxing these days. I'm so caught up in my own work with my own fighters and what's going on. But, you gotta figure MMA as well is kind of probably saturating a little bit, bringing, guys see other ways to make money and get the attention that guys like to get from fighting. So, I'm sure MMA's played a little bit of a factor on that as well. But I don't know. It's a hard question to answer, to be totally honest.
So you competed for a few years as a pro, went undefeated. Ultimately, you put an end to that. Was that just because of the injury, or was your life kind of taking you elsewhere at the time?
Well, as I was going through the injury, I got the mother of my kids was pregnant with twins, so I had quite a bit of responsibility hanging over my head at the time, going through the injury. So that obviously, influenced some of my decisions as well. You got two kids on the way, and you don't have a proper living. It becomes scary.
Why'd you decide to get into training fighters? Was it something that you saw you were naturally good at, or did fighters sort of just ask you to help out and you got into it that way?
Yeah, I think I don't know how this sounds, but it's something that I feel I have a natural my coach used to say it to me too, because he'd watch me with the athletes. He goes, you're not. I mean, this is something that you could be good at. You got the personality for it, and you got the patience for it. And I don't think everybody could be. Everybody's a trainer. Anybody could be you or not you. Anybody could be a trainer. We all could train. You can go on YouTube and train. You know what I mean? But to be able to coach guys, I think is a little bit of a different animal. I think it's something that really naturally came to me.
Understood. Now, at what point did you realize you can make it a second career where you can make money, compete at a high level, maybe not in the ring anymore, but in the corner?
Well, like I said, I fortunately got to work some high-profile fights. As the third or fourth man in the corner in boxing. It probably didn't really register with me to where I'm actually going to make a living with this until I started probably working in MMA, because in boxing I'd just be a pubescent coach. I mean, boxing, you got the guys that've been at it for a lot of years. Started working with MMA guys and obviously working with BJ Penn back in the day and helping him win the world title and getting some proper paydays as a coach doing it as well. Made me think to myself, hey, I can make a living doing this, and it's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, my coach used to say it to me all the time, Jason, it's very hard to actually make a living off fighters, being a coach. I mean, it's not an easy deal, but, so far so good.
And you initially started training boxers, right? You didn't jump right into MMA because your background is from boxing.
Yep. No, I did. I was, like I said, I was helping my coach with some of his fighters, and I trained my own fighters. I had a couple of kids, trained guys from amateurs to pro. I was with boxers, and Pat Nori, the founder of RUCA, RBCA is a clothing brand out here in Southern California. It sponsored MMA guys and jiu-jitsu guys for a lot of years. Vitor, Belfort, BJ Penn, obviously, and he connected me and BJ back in the day, and we really hit it off, and that was kind of my connection to working with BJ, which ended up being successful at the time, and it just really catapulted me into MMA for the most part.
And this may be a loaded question, but what were the adjustments you had to make to apply your style of training to MMA?
You just kind of with movement on your feet, you want to be balanced no matter what you do with boxing, kickboxing, MMA, whatever. But like I said, fortunately, back in the day when I helped LA Boxing open up with a guy by the name of Sean McCauley, who was fighting the very first no holds bar fights, and he was fighting all the first MMA fights, and I was around in Orange County. There was quite a few high-level MMA guys down here. For some reason, Orange County attracted a lot of MMA fighters, and I always used to help the guys anyways. Back when I was fighting myself, they had their MMA fights out. I mean, and I have an understanding of the other vulnerabilities in the MMA game. I mean, you got legs, you got kicks, you got takedowns, you got a lot of other things to look at, and understanding the distance is a whole different animal from a boxing fight, as opposed to MMA fight. And it's just something I guess just being around this stuff my whole life and training it and doing it, and like I said, having a natural ability to kind of connect with people and help direct them. just kind of, it always just a real natural transition because of how much I love it, I think, to be totally honest, over the last 25, 30 years.
Now, I'm assuming it started with BJ, but how did you begin to accumulate a clientele in MMA? I'm assuming it couldn't have been easy coming from a boxing background.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not, and like I said, I got a feel for it. You know, I think like if I was a fighter myself, fighting was the most important thing in my life. You know, it really is. And my fighters that I work with understand that they feel that on me as well. And I do understand that. I understand what's going on there. I understand what I do is really, for the most part, at the same time as I get to know the fighter. You know, if I get to know BJ Penn, I get to know Tito Ortiz, I get to know Michael Bisping, Cris. I get to know them over years. You know, and I know what they do. I don't need to be able to take somebody down and put them in a rear naked choke to know when BJ is in position to do that. Like, once I get to know my athlete, my fighter, how they kick, the way they work, or where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, you know, I could start directing them. You know, I could start helping them. I could start coaching them. You know, and that's just kind of part of it. You know, and you know, some people just have their, you know, a one-dimensional style, and I feel I'm pretty pliable. I'm able to bend to whatever athlete I'm working with, and figure out where their strengths or weaknesses are, and you know, help gain them to the highest level we can get to.
So you burst onto the MMA scene again, as you mentioned, with BJ Penn. By that point, he was already a legend in the sport. How do you go about making him an even more elite striker? I'm assuming he was set somewhat in his ways by then.
Yeah, a little bit, you know, and well, when I got with him, he was coming off, he had 2 losses. He was coming off a couple losses. So I think he definitely was a lot more open, you know, open to hear ideas. And for me, you know, especially when I first started really getting this, the boxing, and as far as throwing punches, was a lot further along than MMA. You know, I already feel like, I mean, I've worked with high-level world champion boxers. You know, so now I get in front of these guys that, you know, like you said, are high-level guys in the MMA world. In the MMA world, they're high-level strikers, but they're definitely not on the highest level of striking, especially as far as throwing punches is concerned. You know, and when I start explaining different mechanics and different ideas and explaining, you know, learning to stand and sit and do a lot of basic fundamentals of boxing, you know, and able to communicate it properly, you see results. You know, you start seeing results, you start believing in it, and you're going to gain some ground. You know, these guys aren't all. Everybody's got room to improve, you know, and you know, you just gotta see what you can do to get them there, really.
And I know there's been no talk of BJ fighting again. Do you anticipate he'll compete in the future?
That's hard. I mean, I learned to stop answering those questions a long time ago. BJ Penn, I say it time and time again, he's a real fighter. Fighting is his passion, it's his love, it's something that, you know, he's going to probably, in my opinion, have to be forced to not do it. You know, but chances are, I mean, BJ's got a great life. You know, he can live a happy life the rest of his life. He doesn't have the need to fight again. To say that he won't, I can't say he will or won't, to be totally honest, because he's one of the most unpredictable fighters I've ever worked with in my life. I love him to death. I talked to him 2 hours ago. You know, I still talk to him quite a bit, and you know, he's a close friend of mine. And you know, health-wise, I support my guys if they're healthy, if they're looking like a world beater in the gym, and if they're looking like they should fight, then fight. You know, if a guy like just wants to fight because psychologically it's all he loves and all he wants to do, and he wants attention and whatever you get out of fighting, you know, if that's the only reason, then I don't think it's a good idea.
And you're so right about that. You know, you look at BJ Penn and you're saying that's a guy that he could have been born rich, poor. He would have been a fighter. How much do you think most fighters are like that? Is it natural, or is it kind of something that can be built over time?
I think, I think it's a little bit of both, because I think there's a lot of guys that I think there's a lot of guys that are fighters or think they're fighters or whatnot, and you get a guy like a BJ Penn or Michael Bisping, or these guys just. It's just the most important thing in the world. They just love it, and they are natural, and it's just something that's ingrained in them, and they want to continue to try to be the best always. And I always respect it. It's hard not to respect. And I to say people are born like the champion's born or whatever those cliche sayings are and whatnot. I think it's a development process. I think it stems. I think fighters that have that inner burn that doesn't stop fighting, I think it stems from whatever their childhood, really. I mean, if you want to get psychological on it, fighters, people can be rich, poor, or indifferent. Whatever happens, growing up, kind of sets them in a frame of mind to where they want to be, they want to fight, and they're not going to, it's just in their soul. I know I'm jumping around with my answer. It's just such an in-depth answer, really. I mean, I deal with so many different personalities and so many different, styles of fighters, and again, personalities that, some guys, have the Mr. Charismatic personality, and they have all the fight in the world. There's some guys that have an attitude like they're the biggest fight in the world and are dog shit. So it's like. They're actually a pea heart. Everybody's an individual case, if you ask me, in the fight game. But BJ Penn definitely is a real natural fighter. I could say he was born a fighter, but at the same time, it's something you learn that's all he wants to do in life.
Right. Now, apart from BJ, you mentioned you work with other fighters, one of whom was Tito Ortiz. What was it like working with Tito? He was never considered a pure striker, so far as I understand.
Yeah, no, he wasn't, not at all. I mean, Tito didn't do any. I mean, you never saw. I mean, Tito wasn't a striker, And there's another guy that, Tito, unfortunately, I don't think had a win for a good 6 years prior to us connecting. And there's another guy that we really connected. He was at a stage of his career where he was really open to my advice, and we were able to do. Again, it's hard to make a guy a puncher or a boxer or kind of, but getting them better on their feet and getting them better to read what's going on there and react what's going on in there. I'm always proud when I'm able to add some inches, especially to a guy like Tito Ortiz that had such a long career already. Before he worked with me, and the first fight we seen him knock out Ryan Bader. He ended up choking him out, but he's able to floor a couple guys, floored Forrest. He's using his hands a little bit. And it doesn't seem like much to a lot of people, I'm sure, but behind closed doors, it's a proud accomplishment of mine.
It seems that Tito gets a bad rap for being, having a hard personality, a tough personality. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he understood the animal of the fight business, and you had to talk a little. He wanted to make money at the same time. He wanted to be able to take care of his family the rest of his life. So he put himself out there. He got pretty flamboyant with it and talked shit, and had a look and a style to him that people loved or hated. He was able to rub people the wrong way and make people feel great. And I mean, that's huge, and that's huge in the fight game. If you got that personality, you're definitely going to generate a lot more money. But of course, you get a lot of shit. There's a lot of people. There's diehard Tito Ortiz fans still out there as well. I'll tell you this: Tito was a household name because still today, you go anywhere with Tito Ortiz, and people are recognizing that guy, who that guy is, and taking pictures with him. You know what I mean? He was definitely he definitely is a big. I think he helped build the sport. In all honesty, I know he wasn't the first guys there, but with his personality and as flamboyant as he was, and his attitude and the way he competed, the way he dominated the 205 pound division back in the day, she made him a superstar and made him hated at the same time.
You also worked with Michael Bisping. You led him to a UFC title. The best part of that entire fight with Luke Rockhold was your reaction to the KO when you folded your arms as if you were expecting that to happen. He was a huge underdog going into that fight. Did the results surprise you? And if not, why not?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. And as you could tell by my reaction, I was surprised because I believed in Michael Bisping and I knew he believed in himself, but I knew what he could do. And I knew coming off that Anderson Silva fight, the war that he was in and just the way he handled himself in that fight. I mean, he really came a far along from the first time he fought Rockhold, and watching Rockhold, it's all of it. I was very confident in that was the way it was going to be played out. Did I think it was going to happen the first round? I didn't know all that, but I knew that Mike was going to get him.
Do you think part of it was Rockhold underestimating Bisping? I think a lot of people had that impression.
You know what? And I get asked this question quite a bit, and I have in the past, and I don't think so. This is the reason why. First of all, Rockhold's a little chinny, and I knew we can get that beard, and nobody fights Michael Bisping and doesn't go in there wanting to kill him. Do you know what I mean? They're going there go fucking, this guy's nothing. If you think he's nothing, he's still going to make you fucking focus on him because he's going to talk shit to you, and he's going to get in your head, and he's going to get you riled up, and he's going to get you mad. He's going to get you to the point where, as far as underestimate, it's not even about underestimating. It's wanting to kill him. You know what I mean? And Luke, as far as the style, and they talk about, I would watch a sparring video of him leading up to that fight, and he was carrying himself the exact same way as he was sparring. It was kind of, I know he was trying to develop and be a little bit more looser in there and relaxed. And he felt that, that calmness that he was trying to develop is one thing, but could have he been a little bit more focused? Everybody could have been a little bit more focused when they lose. That's just part of it. So I don't think so. I don't think he took him lightly. I think that he went out there. He might have been a little cocky with him because the way he got him out, the way he beat him in the first fight. But in all reality, he was in their focus trying to win that fight, and he got caught.
Now, your most recent success came with Cris Cyborg in the Holly Holm fight. Cris is likely the greatest female fighter ever. Again, it's one of those things where she was already a force when you joined her team, I think. In those instances, do you approach it as entirely changing her style or simply tweaking it to make her even more effective?
Yeah, of course. You got to make adjustments. I think I was talking about that earlier. I adjust to every fighter I work with. I adjust to them as opposed to trying to get them to adjust to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, Cris is, and Cris is reminds me a lot back with, when I started working with BJ. They got this strong, dominated style, but they really, it's not a whole lot of direction. There's not a real system or a real thought process, or don't really see where they're going while they're doing it. They're just kind of going off natural instincts, which is great. You have to have that. All those fighters got to have those instincts in there. Again, making some tweaks and making adjustments and just working on the basic fundamentals of everything and just kind of, getting to where they need to be. Cris has developed quite a bit, since I've been working with her going on 6 years now. So, I've spent a lot of time with her. And, when she first came and Bisping was the same way, I mean, there's a lot of wildness there. And there's a lot of, again, no direction, just trying to, wild, strong, and instincts and reflexes, they're great, but you got to really put all these pieces together, to make a full fighter.
Now, Vitor Belfort announced he's retiring after his next fight. I know you trained him for a bit. What does it say about him as an athlete that he was able to stick around at the height of the sport for over 20 years?
That's amazing. He's amazing. I mean, think about 20. He's got a fight coming up, and even like you hear. I'll be around Tito and somebody will ask, like, wow, man, it's crazy that you're able to do this sport 20 years. He goes, yep, only me and Vitor Belfort. And, and Tito even gives him love, about that. And you forget about that. Vitor's been around forever. And there you go with a guy that obviously is a fighter. And it's just something that he just has a passion for. And it's something that he doesn't want to give up.
So we sort of went over some of your most prized students. Are there any others that you're training now that we should look out for in the future?
Well, I've worked with Rafael dos Anjos for his last 3 fights. He just beat Robbie Lawler a month ago, and he's really in a good spot right now to fight for the title. I'm hoping he gets that shot. I'm excited. I'm excited about that fight this year. I'm hoping he's really in a good spot, like I said, for it. And I got some prelim fighters, fighting here coming up as well, and I'm hoping to get them, to a higher level.
How do you think RDA would have done against Conor?
I think he's got a style to beat Conor. RDA is a strong dude. I think him going down to 155 was a little bit of a struggle for him. I think when he got caught with Alvarez, I wasn't there at the time, so I don't know what was going on. But I think he saturated himself a little bit and weakened himself and make it harder for him to take a shot. Sometimes these guys come down. These guys can have great beards, great chins, but they saturate themselves so much, cutting weight, and it affects them. But I think he beats Conor, But he's my guy, and I work with him, and I do believe that, But when you work with somebody, I'm definitely not going to say the other guy would win. You know what I mean? But I think that's a very tough fight for Conor McGregor.
Are you in the camp of people that thinks Conor will come back?
You know what? He's going to, if you ask me, the gun to my head, I would say, at some point he's going to probably have to come back. I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, you mean what, $70-80 million for that fight or whatever it was. And to me, there's guys that I always say it. I say it all the time. Mike Tyson spent $300-400 million back in the 80s and early 90s. And that's like spending $1 billion. You know what I mean? And if you ask me, Conor seems like he has that type of personality, and I don't know. I don't know him well enough, or don't know. I'm not around him, but I know he doesn't like to spend money, and he likes nice things. And I know from you could have a lot of money. I mean, look at Floyd Mayweather comes back and fights, and that guy consistently makes $100 million. It's not because I don't think he's broke. But I'm sure that you see that bank account going a lot lower, makes you realize I got to go back and put some more in there. So I think he fights again.
How do you think he does against Khabib? That's a scary guy.
That's a tough fight, man. All those fights, those wrestling fights are tough, for him, and, it's hard, I would like to, we talk about, a lot of people talk about, Conor and how great he is, and we still really actually don't have a whole lot to judge. Yeah, we do. We don't. You got some 145 pounders that he's fought, and his biggest win probably was Jose Aldo in that division, and then, these guys aren't the same size, the same mass as RDA or Khabib, or Khabib's difficult for anybody, man. I was out that last fight. That guy's a beast, and Conor's going to have to, styles make fight, and I think that's a very tough style for Conor's style.
Jason, has been so great of you to join us. Thanks so much for taking the time. Where can people go to find out more about you, your training, your schedule, upcoming events?
Parillo Boxing, my Instagram, Parillo Boxing, or I say Parillo Boxing, my website, but I don't know if it's probably been 2 years since I've even clicked onto that thing. So, you can find me on Parillo Boxing, though, my Instagram. I try to keep it as simple as I can with the whole social media world.
Jason, once again, thanks so much for taking the time.
Right on, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And that's our interview with Jason Parillo. I hope you had a good time. Thanks so much for listening. My name's Dmitriy Shakhnevich. If you want to learn more about me, please visit www.dshaklaw.com. And this is the Fight Lawyer Podcast. Till next time, folks.